Welcome back to another sewing tutorial. Today we're going to make this little cute pouch with ruffles, and this is an absolutely beginner friendly project. Just take it slow and follow these steps. If you're new here, hi, I'm Leah. I studied fashion design, pattern making and worked as a professional seamstress, and now I'm going to show you how you can have fun sewing at home. For this project, I am using 100% cotton fabric, and it's actually a bedsheet, but for the pouch, the pillowcase is plenty. And I'd say let's get started. To make the Emma pouch, you need a pattern, a zipper. I just got some by meter, and you can optionally add a label if you'd like. Then I'm making mine from a pillowcase, and I got some fabric for the lining. You can either use the same fabric on the inside and outside, or you can use two different fabrics. Then you need some wadding, and you're basically good to go. When you're printing the pattern, just make sure to check the box print 100% so the sizing is right. You can also check the boxes here and measure quickly if it's exactly 5 to 5 centimeters or 2 by 2 inches if you prefer to measure with inches. Then you can lay it out and tape it together. There are only a few pages you need to tape, and to make it a little bit quicker, I'm just cutting back the edges here and here. You can also cut back to the dashed line if you'd like, or you can just line up the crosses like this. You can either use a glue stick or sticky tape and just tape it together like this. Now you're basically ready to cut it out. When you've cut the pattern out, you're ready to cut your fabric. It is always important to pre-wash your fabric, even if you are only making a pouch and not a dress or something like that, just to make sure it keeps its shape and size when washing it, in case you ever need to. Now I'm starting to cut the lining, and for that I need the first piece 2 times. And here I'm just checking that the fabric lies nice and flat and straight. I am always pinning it really well. When you are cutting with scissors, pin it even more. And if you are cutting with a roller blade, you usually don't lift up the fabric, so the pattern won't move as much. But I do still recommend to pin it enough, because having precise cut pieces is important to get a nice piece in the end. I am using my roller blade, and here the seam allowance is already in there, so you can just cut along the edge. Then if you look closely on your fabric, you can see the thread running. Always match up the pattern along the thread running. We can also cut the ruffles. If you want to make the back without the ruffles, that's fine. You can just leave that part out, and this pattern piece doesn't need to be cut therefore. But if you do, you can now place it straight along the edge of your fabric. And here I just made sure that the fabric edge is straight for that. So when you pull on a thread here, it needs to go all the way across when you pull it, so you know it is straight. With fabrics that are woven just straight, that is super easy to do. Otherwise it's a bit more tiring to make sure that the fabric is straight. Now here again, I'm also pinning the piece. I am also pinning the piece for the zipper. This is very optional if you'd like to add this or not. Moving on to the other 2 pieces. We've already cut the pouch piece 2 times for the lining, and now 2 more times to quilt. Here I'm also making sure that the fabric is folded very straight. So I have stripes, I can just fold it along the stripe, but you can just fold it along the straight edge. And here I am just cutting out these 2 pieces generously like this. because I will quilt. And here I have just folded and I am separating the 2 layers, but you can also leave it together and quilt it all together. It doesn't really matter, but you need 2 pieces to quilt. Then you also need 2 times the piece for the zipper, and here I'm now again pinning, and this I can cut out precisely. Moving on to the wadding, I am now cutting out wadding to the size of the 2 pieces I've cut for the outer bag. Now you can choose how you would like to quilt. Like this is just quilting straight. You can follow the stripes if you have a striped fabric, or you can just measure the distance always and mark it. But you definitely can also quilt diagonally, just starting here like this, and then I'll just do 3 centimeters distance like that, and I'll just move on. Then for the other part, I'm doing it like that, and again with a distance of 3 centimeters. The same thing I'll do for the other piece. If you have a quilting foot, you can also just use that and mark your first line, and then adjust the distance, and then always follow the next line like that. This also goes for when you go straight like that, so you can just follow the last seam with your marker. To make sure it will not move when I'm quilting, I've just pinned it in a few places so that the wadding and fabric stays exactly as I want it. To quilt, I am choosing a straight stitch and stitch length about 3.5 to 4, depending on your machine, but generally just a bit of a longer stitch, and then I can just start. Now I'm quilting the other direction, same as before. When you're done quilting, you can pin on the pattern again, and since you have cut it out a bit bigger, you can now cut it back right along the pattern. And the same thing for the other piece. Quickly ironing it a bit here as well. I'm also ironing these 2 quickly in half. Like this. Then and this is for the zipper. You don't need this, but it's something you can definitely add if you like. Just ironing it in half. For the ruffles, I am also ironing that in half, just like this. For the pocket, I'm facing the nice side down, and then I am ironing up 1 centimeter at one of the longer sides. For that, I'm measuring and ironing like this, and then I'll just fold it up along the edge I've just ironed and ironing it down again. Then when I'm done with that, I'm taking the sides and I am ironing in 1 centimeter. This is the shorter side. Here as well, I'm folding it down again and ironing it up like that. Same thing for the other shorter side. I have ironed up 1 centimeter and I'm ironing in 1 more centimeter like that. 4 lines like a hashtag, and I can cut back a little bit of the fabric from the outer part like this. So now it's a little bit flatter when I'm folding it in like this. And then the same thing on this side as well, just the outer part here like this, not too much. Again, folding the first edge, the side in and down, and now here I'm also putting in a pin so that it holds. Moving on to the last edge, this will be the top edge where we are reaching in. I am measuring down again 1 centimeter and ironing it flat. And now folding it along the edge I've just ironed, also like that. Here too, I can cut back a little bit of the part I folded in, but only the outer part so that it isn't too much and it won't fray. If you want to add a label, now is the perfect time. So you can either put it in the middle here on your pocket, just check that it's the top part like this here. Or you can also add it in the corner, but just remember that there is some seam allowance, so it would be placed like this somehow. I have got some label glue stick. We've never used this in the studio and I have not really used it, so I don't even know if I would recommend it. So I'm just trying it out for now. I can also let you know if that's something you're interested, if it's worth buying. This will wash out, so now I'm just adding the label here. I'm also choosing a bit of a longer stitch, about 3. Taking the pocket piece with the side I've ironed down the last, I am now following the edge with the foot, which is about 7 millimeters, and I'm just sewing down this part here. Also with a longer stitch length, and I'll do a few back stitches. Just like this. And this I'm only doing for that side. Then I'm taking 1 piece of the lining. On the pattern you can also see the pocket placement. So I am placing the pocket on the piece here, just making sure that it really is in the middle and that it is straight. And then I'm basically just pinning it on. This I'll do all around. Now with the pocket pin, you can sew on the pocket, and for that I am starting and I'm just at the edge here with the foot along the edge of the pocket, and with a longer stitch again I'm just sewing upwards to the end. And here I'm just going to the line I've sewn on here, then I am turning parallel. Now I am going out about as much that when I'm turning that I can follow the edge with the inner foot here. So I'm going along the outer edge here. To the corner with the needle down I'm turning. Now I'm adjusting half a stitch so that I'm in the exact right position again, and I'll go like this. With the needle down I'm again turning. Here again turning, and on top of the first stitch I do about 2 stitches, and turning again. And now with the edge of the foot, I'm following the edge of the pocket. And turning for the last time. And I'm going a little bit further than I have started. Like this. I'm cutting back the threads. Just make sure the zip has the right length, and then taking your zipper and the two pieces you've ironed in half, you can place them here at each side of the zipper. Just push it to the edge, and here as well, like this. Then I'm measuring 2 centimeters and I'm just marking here and here as well. I've put a few pins so it won't move, and then I'm sewing down the 2 centimeters I've marked, and for that I'm using stitch length 2.5. Doing a few back stitches at the start and at the end. When you're going across the zipper, you can also do that by hand to make sure your needle won't break. Here the same thing. Now I'm folding these open and pulling it back like that. This I do for both sides, and I'll just iron it flat. If you have a piece with a label, or if you have a preferred front side, you can now take this and put the zipper exactly along the edge here. Then you can take a piece of lining and put it with the nice side facing down, exactly on top of it along the edge, making sure that it is precisely where it's supposed to be. I can now pin along the edge here like this, and I'm always checking that the zipper is still at the top. Now here we have a little bump because of the zipper, but we will just start here and then stop here with the needle down. I am sewing this with 5mm seam allowance, and for that I'm exactly in the middle of the foot here. If you have the classic home sewing machine foot. And here I'm also using stitch length 2.5. At the start and at the end I'll do a few back stitches. Now with the needle down, I am lifting the foot, and then I'll just go to my zipper and open the zipper up. And now you can put your foot down again and continue to the end. At the ironing board, you can now fold it open and iron the lining back like this. Then you can also fold open the front piece here and ironing it apart, thing nice and flat. Now you have ironed it nice and flat, and we can take the second piece. Here I'm taking the outside fabric and putting it onto the outside fabric, and then I'll match it up with the zipper, pinning it as well. Not too much yet because I have the lining as well. Here one. Turning it around and putting the lining onto the lining, and then I am pinning on this side as well. Make sure to match up the zipper and the lining as well as the outside piece so that everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. Now I'm sewing what I've just pinned with 5mm seam allowance, and looking at the zipper, the foot is on the other side. So I'm just starting. Now in the middle, I'm stopping with my needle down and I'm lifting the foot. Now looking for the zipper, I am closing it and it's going to be tight. And then I'll go back and put the foot down and now I can finish to the end. At my ironing board, I'm folding open what I've just sewn and again ironing it apart. Here I'm also doing so from this side as well, laying it flat, and here I'm just pulling a bit, pulling it apart. Now I'm changing the stitch length to a longer stitch again, about 3.5, 4, depending on your machine. And then I am going to sew down along this edge here. For that, I'm making sure that I have ironed it nicely and I'm always pulling it flat so that it doesn't go back. Here I'm also always checking at the bottom. And now just follow the edge with my sewing machine foot. Now again with my needle down, I am lifting the foot and moving the zipper foot to the other side just to make sure that I have a straight line. And then I'll just continue to the end. Now when you're done with one side, you can do the same thing for the other side. Next step is preparing the ruffles, and for that we've already ironed it in half and now I'm on both sides ironing down 1 centimeter and then folding it close again. And the same thing on the other side as well. With stitch length 3.5, like your longer stitch, I'm now closing the edge. And for that, I'm just following the edge with my sewing machine. And the same thing on the other side, just like that. Choosing now a super long stitch to gather the fabric. I am now following the edge of the ruffles. And this I'm doing just about foot wide. Now I can just pull on one of the threads and then I just gather the ruffles. To gather to the right length, you just match it up here and go all around until you're here on the other side, facing inwards with the raw edge facing outward. And just keep on pinning until you're up the other side. When you're pinning, just make sure you only have the one layer and make also sure that you are using enough pins, but then it should look like this. It ends just as it started, exactly on this line. And when you've done that, you can then fold this part over on top of the ruffles you have just pinned, and then you have to make sure that this part is facing upwards toward the lining, and the zipper I am keeping open and not too close here, that I have just enough space to keep this part flat. And here I'm also making sure that I am matching up the seams precisely like this. And of course I am also putting a pin here like this. And then I'll just take some more pins and pin everything together like this. And when you've pinned this part, you can start pinning the lining as well. Here it's a bit bulky with the zipper, but just keep it nice and flat. Here we will be leaving a part open to turn the bag inside out. So just make sure to start here and end here on your sewing machine. Now I have started to sew here and I will stop sewing here, and I'm just going all around with 1 centimeter seam allowance, and I go super slow on this part because it is very thick and I have a lot of pins. You can sew above pins, but you can also just put them out before you go above. If you want to sew above your pins, which helps you keep the fabric in place, just go super slow so that your needle will not break. And maybe on the thickest part where the zipper is also sandwiched in, you can even turn the wheel by hand so that you're not breaking anything, and just go slow above it. Now as I have started here, I will stop just there so that I have an opening and that I can turn the bag. I am cutting back here the seam allowance a tiny bit, just around the corner, because it is very thick here. But don't go too close because you don't want the bag to open up. And the corner here, this corner a little bit as well, but definitely not too much. Here it's not so much fabric anyways. And the last one too. Then I am reaching through the opening and I'm pulling the bag inside out, pushing out the corners here, and same thing on the other side as well, like that. At my sewing machine I'm pulling out the lining, and here I have the opening where we've turned the fabric. This I am placing flat, and I do like to add a few pins. It's not really necessary, but it keeps it nice and flat and in place. And now I'm just sewing it close like this. Now as it is closed, I can push it in, and I have a nicely lined bag with the inside pocket. Now we can add a little strap to the zipper. This is very optional. You can skip that part as well if you'd like, or you can take this part if you have chosen to make one. Also here with 1 centimeter seam allowance, sewing the strap like this, and then I am cutting back the seam allowance, taking a safety pin at the corner here, and now turning the strap inside out. For that I'm just pushing it all the way through. Now I'm quickly ironing out the corners here a little bit, like this, and here as well, and also ironing the strap I have just turned. I am adding the strap to the zipper like this, and I am making a knot. For the two ends, I'm just cutting back the edge a tiny little bit. I am choosing stitch width about 1.5 and stitch length about 1, and I'll do a zigzag stitch across the edge. For that I am starting in the middle, do a few stitches back, and then go all the way and a few stitches back again. The same for the other one. And just like that I have a non-fraying edge. This is it for the pouch.